left. Watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast. I'm your host, Mual, Hen Dog Mual, Coach Mual, all that good stuff, man. And AJ and Dre, per usual, it's late. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna talk about that one day, but I'm not gonna waste no time getting the good man Manny in this thing right now. But Manny is just change the screen. There we go. Manny is checking in. Good friend of the show, good friend within the Commanders community as well. Manny, how you feeling today, big dog? You doing all right?
I'm doing good, bro. How are you?
I can't complain, man. I'm healthy. I'm in a good space, man. So I guess when things are good like that, you know, take that good news while that curve is going up. So I love it, bro. I love it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. So on this show agenda, we're gonna be. I know Manny has some things to take care of, so we're gonna make sure we get Manny's thoughts and everything up front on some things. So on the show agenda today, we got Manny's thoughts on the team. Clearly, obviously, to this point, we haven't had him on, I think, the entire draft process. I don't remember. But we're gonna hear from Manny on that, and then Jack Del Rio and Scott Turner spoke. So we're gonna get some quotes from Jack Del Rio and Scott Turner and kind of talk about their understanding and their direction of the team to this point. So, Manny, if we're gonna get things started right now, we got a comment. Hold on, my bad, dog. What's going on, DC Breeze? How you feeling? Manny, let me get your thoughts on this Commanders offseason to this point. Last we talked, it was on IG Live, and we were talking through free agency at that point, and I don't think, matter of fact, because I remember we were talking about Deshaun Watson, so we didn't have our quarterback yet. So let me get your thoughts on where they are to this point in the offseason. You could take that question wherever you want to go, whether it's macro, micro, whatever. But the floor is yours. What are you thinking about how they handled this offseason?
Yeah, so I don't know. I have mixed feelings. So I think when we talked, we were definitely discussing what was going to happen at quarterback. And, they missed out on Wilson, or I guess you could say that he chose not to come here. And they ended up going with Wentz. And I would say, like, my initial reaction was like, man, this is like they were just a desperation move to go and get Wentz. And then to have to pay him $28 million, like that kind of threw me back, and was like, man, this is like a really desperate move. But I stepped back for a minute and just thought about it. And I looked at it as almost kind of being like Ryan Fitzpatrick, of like a more expensive Ryan Fitzpatrick move, I guess. Because to me, like Wentz is a guy that's going to come in this year and potentially give you what I thought that Fitzpatrick would have last year. Mm-hmm. I think that is going to be around that same. We expected Fitzpatrick to have good games. We expected him to have bad games. And I'm kind of expecting the same with Wentz. I think that this is a guy that will be here for, a year. I don't know if he's going to be here next year. I just, I don't think he's a long-term solution. But I get why they had to go that route because, you look at the draft and how that played out and everything. Like, there just wasn't a lot of options at quarterback, and they really did not want to go into this season with Taylor Heinicke. So I got that, and then the free agency, I feel like they didn't do much. I feel like they lost more than they gained in free agency. The one that really got me is Settle. I really, for me, like, I just felt like a guy that young, who you didn't have to pay too much. For me, like, I would have tried to figure out how to get him back and convince him that, hey, you were going to have more play time. You were going to get more opportunities. So that one, I wasn't really feeling that move. And then, we got to the draft, and the draft kind of felt the same way about free agency. It's kind of just like meh. Like, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad.
Do you grade drafts? If you do, what grade would you give it?
I don't, but I think I would give it maybe a C+. So
In the
like,
same range, C plus B minus. That's
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah, yeah. And I will say, like, I for like this year, I didn't get a chance to look at a bunch of players pre-draft, so I hadn't really watched Dotson pre-draft. I tried to watch, the guys that most people had as a top 5 wide receivers. I didn't see his name on those lists as much. I knew about Jahan Dotson. I think I had tweeted something out around the scouting combine. Was like his name just it sounded too much like Josh Dotson for me.
Uh-huh.
but
You ain't
but
the
I,
only one. That's all I see in people's comments, man. I wrote a little breakdown on them. They said, you know what? Nope, too much, too close to Dotson. Dotson, I ain't with it.
yeah. But you know what, man? Like after the draft, I started looking at him, and to me, like I actually probably would have put him above Olave. He probably would have been like my 4th receiver. I like him. I like him, man. So
That's literally where I had him. Number 4,
yeah,
right behind him was Olave.
yeah. I'm with that, man. So I like
Yeah.
that. I like that pick. The second and third round pick. I have to watch more of the running back. I have to watch more of the D tackle. My initial reaction was that, especially Phil Mathis, I felt like that was maybe a little too rich for him. But you hear from his agent who thought he was going to go within 10 more picks, and you hear people just kind of talking about, well, he has potential in the pass rush. From what I've seen, I think his strength is in the run game, and you needed that anyway. I just feel like you could have gotten, if not him, somebody else that could fill that role, a little later. With the running back, I get why they got him. I'm excited about the tight end. I think that he's going to be pretty good.
Cole
And
Turner.
yeah, Cole Turner, I'm excited about him. And of course, my boy Howell. I've been talking about him for a minute, man. I love that
Man.
boy. And it's not that
Scott spoke on him too. Scott
yeah,
Turner did. We'll talk
yeah.
about it.
And it's not that it's not like I'm calling him the future of the team or anything. It's just I like his potential. He's a young guy. He's been through adversity. He's overcome it. He has a skill set that is, to me, a pretty good skill set. He has a solid arm, solid accuracy. He's on the shorter side, but I think there's potential there. And to get him in the 5th round, I think that's awesome. I'm glad that the team actually had the guts to do that, especially with a guy with his name, as in Sam Howell.
Hey Manny, I'm coming in here a little bit late, so I know I ain't let Coach
Very
Mual
late.
do the
Very late.
the
Hey.
introductory presser or whatever. But when you mentioned Sam Howell, I knew that you were on him like since last year. Well, maybe 2 years before, just seeing the tweets or whatever. But is it not alarming to you that this guy went from potential 1st round pick to, first overall pick to 1st round pick to 5th round? Like, what? I mean, I understand the difference in the players that he was playing with 2020 comparison to 2021, whereas he had Diami Brown, Javonte Williams, and a bunch of other cats that ended up getting drafted and going on to the pro ranks. But that's pretty alarming. Like, I mean, I don't know what the scouts really seen. I didn't really, I wasn't really impressed after the 2021 season. But, is that not concerning to you that this guy went from potential number 1 pick to 1st round overall to 5th round?
Yeah, it is alarming. And it's something that I guess you got to just go back and look at his previous years and then compare it to this year, this past season, where he didn't have as much talent around him. And that's a true story. And I feel like, his stats, it definitely went down. But at the same time, I don't think he had a bad season. And so for him to end up becoming a 5th round pick, I think it just had a lot to do with the landscape of this draft. I feel like it wasn't a lot of teams that actually really, really needed a quarterback and high. And so like when you don't really, really need one high, then you kind of become a little skeptical about drafting one high because you know what that's going to do to whoever you have starting at quarterback. You pick somebody in the first 3 rounds, everybody's going to be clamoring for this guy to start. And so, I think there's a lot of variables to that. But I do get, the skepticism with him, especially, being so highly touted, yet being a 5th round pick. I think there's a lot of potential there. I mean, he was the youngest quarterback in this draft. I think there's a lot of potential there. He accomplished a lot in college. I'm just interested in seeing if he can be developed here.
So, with that being said, well, Dre just checked in for those who are listening. What's going on, Dre? How you feeling? And AJ, because you know you came in hot with the question. I gotta check in on y'all, man. How y'all feeling?
Shit, man, I'm all good, man. It's busy day, man. The life of me, but I'm here though.
Yeah, AJ.
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Looking forward to the show. Got Manny on here. My boy looking clean with the Fair Guy hat on. Good to see him on here. Good to see him happy in high spirits.
Absolutely. Yes, so Breeze, man, I see you said you had Dotson as your 5th best receiver going into the draft. Talk to me. I let the people know what was your draft grade and why was that your draft grade, whatever you had for it. So fellas, as we move forward, because we're on the Sam Howell thing. I did say we were going to talk about Del Rio and Turner. Del Rio was up first, but I like the fact that we're on Sam Howell and Cole Turner to an extent because Scott Turner mentioned both of those players. We'll start with Scott Turner because Sam Howell, since we're still on the subject. One of the quotes that he had in his presser, I believe, with Julie Donaldson. I didn't hear the full thing, but I got some excerpts from it. I'll read this quote from from Scott Turner on Sam Howell. So it goes as follows. He said, normally in training camp, you're repping 3 groups. So Carson, Taylor, and Sam will each have their own group. Based on how guys do, they may get an opportunity with another group. We like Sam a lot. We had him graded high. We're really surprised he dropped to where he did. We're happy to get him, but he's a young guy. He only spent 3 years in college. He's only 21. So this is an opportunity for him to come in and learn how to play behind 2 quarterbacks that have had a significant amount of playing time in the NFL. However he does, that will dictate where it goes. So he'll get his opportunities. How do you do with those opportunities dictates the next opportunity that you get. So fellas, I'm gonna go to you, Dre, and get your thoughts on Sam. Some further thoughts on Sam. For me, when it comes to Sam, I think, and I said this last week, it was last week, but I'm gonna just reiterate it for a potentially new audience and Manny. I think Howell is going into a really good situation for him and his growth. To AJ's point, the quarterback slide and even going to the 5th round, I think that's indicative of 2 things. Obviously, the true thoughts around the league about the quarterback position itself for the 2022 draft class, but also that some of these guys have significant concerns. Like, because if you're getting drafted in the 5th round, it's not because, especially at the quarterback position, it's not because, it was a mistake. Like, sometimes coming out as a prospect, you're lacking some things. And I think it's not just Sam, it's a few other guys. Malik Willis didn't get drafted to the 3rd round. I thought he was a 1st round guy, and I was dead wrong. I thought he would have got taken in the 1st round. Same thing with some other guys, like Matt Corral was projected at one point to go in the 1st round. He was mocked to the Commanders by professional analysts. But with that being said, back to Sam Howell, I don't think there can be any other or any better situation for him because he can sit and learn, but also he's not going to have that pressure of a 1st round pick, 2nd round pick to come in and do immediate things right away. It's not going to interfere with the tutelage that you can get under Carson Wentz or even Taylor Heineke to a degree. So I like the situation that he's in, and I think that one thing that always sticks into my mind is Dwayne Haskins' situation when he was drafted. He was drafted in a situation where there were so many coaches in front office. They were under pressure because he got drafted in the 1st round. Some people had 3rd round draft grades on him, and he was drafted in the 1st round at pick 15 or 16 or something like that. And I think those are the things that make things unfair. So when you have no pressure and you have that name behind you, you can just sit back, study, get in your playbook, do the reps in practice, and when your time comes, even if it's that first preseason game, but when your time comes, you're going to show people what you got right away. And if you got something to work with, it's going to be on Sam Howell to that point. So that was the quotes from Scott Turner. Dre, if you had some thoughts on Sam Howell as well, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Howell has always been an interesting player to me because I've been actually following Sam Howell for a long time now. As you all know, I'm a Florida State football fan. He committed to Florida State originally, and he was supposed to go, but something happened where his dad didn't want him to go to Florida State, so he ended up going to UNC. But he was a top 2 quarterback prospect in the country coming out of high school. So he's always been rated highly, among scouts, which is why the fall has been really interesting this past year. Because going into this year, people did think he would probably be the number 1 overall prospect drafted this year. But I mean, yeah, sure, the talent does have a lot. Well, the talent drop off that UNC had does have a lot to do with, why maybe some people view him differently. But I also think there's an underlying thing too when it comes to Sam Howell. A lot of fans kind of watched him last year and they saw him run the football really well. I mean, he can pass, and we know he can throw. He has an arm, but he ran the football a lot better last year. I mean, he had a lot of yards, but I think a lot of fans misconstrue that to think that he has wheels or he's super athletic, and he's actually not. I kind of look at him as more of a Tim Tebow style runner. Like Tim Tebow wasn't like a blazing agile quarterback when he took off with the ball. He was more of a bulldozer, which is what Sam Howell is. And I actually think Sam Howell may be slightly less unathletic than Tim Tebow. Like I don't think I don't think he runs the same speed as a Tim Tebow. I know Tim Tebow ran a 4.7 out of Florida. Sam Howell didn't run the 40, but I think he would probably finish in the 4.8 range. So I think that also has something to do with it. But he does have good pocket awareness, as a quarterback, which is a good thing. But he tends to make a lot of, some of those dumbfounded mistakes. So he's young, really young. And like Mual said, with his statements, is that he's in a great position and he's not expected to come out and, dominate right away, or he's not expected to be thrown to the wolves right away like a Dwayne Haskins was. Howell's in the same position right now as Malik Willis with Tennessee. Like these guys, I think that was the best thing to happen for some of these guys in what you would call a weak quarterback draft is them getting drafted where they probably should be slotted somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round. I mean, Sam Howell may have fell a little bit more, but either way, I just think it's a blessing for those guys to be drafted where they are because they can sit and learn a playbook now. They're not expected to come out day 1, week 1, starting quarterback, and that's where fans start to say, oh, well, this guy is this guy is that. So now they can just develop in peace, and this will be better off in their career. So we'll see 2 years down the line what Sam Howell is at, but that's my thoughts on Sam.
Yeah, I mean, I think in regards to Sam, man, I don't think the coaching staff is going to put pressure on him per se, but the fan base is. I think they've already started, and that's because of the fact that they don't even know what they're getting in the starter that has been put out there in Carson Wentz. So due to that, he could start feeling those type of pressures and different things. I mean, the coaching staff can't prepare him to be the starter, but the fan base has already started, throwing his name out there, projecting him to be so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. They're tagging him. They're communicating with him. The reality is if Carson Wentz has a bad game, people are going to be like, let's put Sam out there. We don't know what he can do. We know what Taylor can do. So, yeah, he's not the number 2 right now, but eventually he's going to have to be the number 2. That's where the pressure is going to come from the coaches because they can't – I mean, they could, but I don't see them being willing to put Taylor back out there, if something were to go wrong in the regular season. I mean, with Sam, man, he's a talented kid. Like, they'll be talented. And I almost wish I could reach out to him and ask him, like, does he regret foregoing his senior year to leave early and be drafted in the 5th round? Because something is not right there. Like when you're a prospect like a junior, you typically go and get your draft grade from the board, the advisory board, to see where you might be slotted before you go ahead and give up your senior year. So they must have told him that he was going 1st or 2nd round. That's why he felt comfortable to leave. No way in hell that he would have thought during this process he'd go 5th round. But at the end of the day, man, he's in a great situation. Couldn't be in a better situation quarterback-wise because he may have the opportunity to be the starter. He may be able to move up the ladder fairly quickly than in comparison to other places that he could have been drafted. I'm looking forward to how he develops, I don't really know if Washington has someone that can develop him. I don't know if the staff has ever really developed a quarterback. I mean, they had Cam Newton, and the list of the other guys just are like you normally say all the time, Manny.
Well, that's developing,
you know. No, but the list of the other guys are just like, nah, they just Jags. Like they just throwing them out there.
But the other guys,
they never got a chance because they weren't. But they weren't good. We're talking about Will Greer, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke. I think Derek Anderson.
But these weren't high investments, though. AJ, these weren't like that, and that's a rare thing in today's NFL for guys to come. I mean, well, nowadays you're expecting your top starters to come in the first round these days, so it's hard to develop them in the third, fourth, fifth round wherever they draft them.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, but you're still putting them out there. Like Will Greer was a third round pick in 2019, so for a team of that nature, you probably should have been developing Will Greer because you could have picked up a starting quality player for Carolina around that time frame. But either way, I'm gonna probably say every show going forward, I don't expect Ron Greer to be here next year, anyways. So Lord, I mean, I think that'll just change up everything dynamic wise. But at the end of the day, I think it was a great value pick to be able to get someone who was touted as a number 1 overall pick, possibly in the 5th round.
But you know what, AJ, I did want to mention, he brought up a great point with the Taylor Heineke being number 2. That's something interesting. They're going to probably have to name Taylor Heineke number 2, just in case for what AJ mentioned. Maybe Carson gets injured during the game. Maybe Carson's having a bad game. You don't want to put that pressure on Sam Howell. Remember the shit that Washington caught when Dwayne Haskins got thrown out there? I think it was against the Giants, I want to say. When Case Keenum had a bad game or got injured, whatever the case was, they threw him out there, and a lot of people were saying, oh, well, they threw him out to the Wolves. So you don't want to kind of set Sam Howell up in that instance being the number 2 right away. Like, if something happens to Carson in the game, Sam Howell gets thrown to the Wolves. He doesn't look good, then what happens? Now you're saying he's trash?
Well, I guess the reason why I would feel comfortable putting him out there is he has a lot of experience playing in games already, right? But his attributes align with Carson Wentz way more than Taylor Heineke's does. Like if you have to go to your backup because he gets injured, at least I can still stretch the ball downfield with Howell. Versus now, if I have to bring in Taylor Heineke, everything becomes short and intermediate. You get what I'm saying? So it's like,
I was gonna say that's the difference, because I think they're actually comfortable with Taylor coming in a pinch. So if Taylor had to come in a pinch and Carson had to miss extended time, or they just figured they were done with Carson, then I think you say, all right, Sam, we're ready to take you after this game, and we're gonna prepare you the next week to start the football game instead of just throwing you out on a whim.
So Dre, let me ask you this: if Sam goes out there and balls in preseason, are you comfortable to make him number 2 over Taylor?
I mean, preseason's preseason. It depends on who he's doing it against. I mean, if he's doing it against 3rd or 4th stringers, I've seen this story before. I mean, I would love for him to look good regardless, but I mean, I don't know how much stock I could put into him lighting up preseason, context withstanding.
Okay, another question. Carson Wentz gets hurt week 3 into the season. You would feel more comfortable throwing Taylor Heineke out there versus Sam Howell? Just going based off of traits. Just going based off of traits. In the middle of a game.
In the middle of a game,
in the middle of a game, based on traits.
Right. I'm more based on traits. I'm more so basing it on NFL experience. And saying that I would feel more comfortable with Taylor in a pinch than I would Sam in a pinch. I would feel more comfortable with Sam with a week of preparation versus Taylor.
AJ, logistically too, though. I'm asking you logistically, how, like, if we know the situation that Sam's in, and we know what Taylor brings to the table, because clearly he's still a backup, wouldn't it make sense logistically to make sure that you have your most prepared person on the field in the event that Carson Wentz gets hurt?
I mean, who's to say that Taylor Heineke is going to be more prepared than Sam Howell? That's why I said based on traits. Like, if you go based on traits, Sam Howell can run the RPO. He can definitely move in the pocket, got way better pocket awareness, has a stronger arm. I mean, yeah, he's shorter, but at the end of the day, traits-wise, like, he brings more to the table for me than Taylor Heineke, no matter how many games Taylor Heineke has started and the lack of how many plays Sam Howell has had in the NFL. Like for me, I would be comfortable to being able to run my playbook with Sam Howell more so than Taylor Heineke. Because I just know, like, Sam Howell's a dog. Like, he's very reserved in the media, everything. But I've seen him go hard for UNC, like, in games, bro. Like, I've seen that man, like, want to get hit straight up, running, doing whatever he can to make a play for his team. Unfortunately, wide receivers had a bunch of drops last year, poor protection, pocket always collapsed on him, whatever. But the year before that, like I said, he was touted as the number 1 overall pick. It was for a reason. So it's just the traits to me, I would feel comfortable. And if I'm coaching accordingly, he should already be prepared as well as far as the mental aspect. But he's never going to be able to show what he can do until he gets those live reps. That's why I would say I know what Taylor Heineke can do. And I know if he has to come in the middle of a game, like the defense already knows everything is getting packed in. Like you're either going to run the ball or it's going to be the short game. Whereas with Sam Howell, they've never seen tape on this man. So they wouldn't even know what to do at all.
Well, AJ, if Sam Howell comes in the game in the middle of a game and he stinks it up, is it Scott Turner's fault?
If he comes in the game and he stinks it up, cool. Like that's just a lesson learned. Like that's a quick little spanking. You feel me? Like you got to bounce back. I mean, we seen Carson Wentz stink it up, and now he got traded. Like I seen him stink it up against the Dolphins last year. Came back to y'all 2 days after seeing it, was like, yo, that was probably one of the worst quarterback games I've seen in person, bro. And now he's the starting quarterback for the team that I've rooted for my whole life, unfortunately.
All right.
He'll be all right.
All right. Yeah, I'm about to say everybody be all right. So, Monty, appreciate you checking in. He said C+ grade for him on a curve. But Amani also said it's good to see Manny in real life, man. So you got some fans out here, some people who appreciate you, Manny. Appreciate you checking in, Amani. And fellas, I think, because I know I want to make sure I get this one conversation in with Manny before he has to step. And we'll circle back to the offense. But Jack Del Rio, I wanna have this conversation with you, Manny, because you mentioned Phil. And you mentioned your concern in terms of value where he was selected. So, Jack Del Rio, 1 second. Hey, man, look, if y'all out here and love dogs, try to avoid a husky. But listen, let me stop, man. All right, so here's one thing that he said about Phil. And the draft process, and this is kind of what sheds light into how they view things. So Jack Del Rio mentioned that it's really easy as a defensive coordinator in terms of building their draft board or providing arguments for draft players. He said it's really easy as a defensive coordinator. I stack the players, draft prospects, meaning how we like them as a defensive staff. We get to give our piece in front of the head coach, general manager, scouts, and let them do their job. For me, it is about whatever is the best pick to help us win. I'm for it. And when it comes to Fedarian, he said Phil is a well-rounded defensive tackle. I think he is the best in the run game. He is our third defensive tackle at this point we have in our building. He is a big, strong guy who can eat up blocks and can generate some rush, some push inside. So those are his thoughts on Fedarian Mathis. But this is also like his little insight in how they do things on the draft side and developing their board and making arguments for players. Manny, I want you to get your first stab at this about what you heard from Jack Del Rio and any opinion on Phil hearing this conversation from Jack.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what he's saying because, I mean, even Tim Settle and Ioannidis, like neither one of them necessarily had the skill set that Phil does. Even Deron Payne, I think, is slightly different. And so with Phil, they're bringing in a guy that has a different skill set. But at the same time, like it just goes back to what I was saying. Like I just feel like, especially on the defensive line, I feel like they've lacked vision this offseason on the D line. I don't know what they're really doing there. To hear Ben Standig come out and talk about, well, they're not even going to consider re-signing Deron Payne right now. So you don't know, this may be his last year. You don't know what his future may hold. And of course they've let go of 2 key pieces. I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like they've lacked vision there. So while I understand what Del Rio was saying, I just feel like they've created more of a need on the D line when it wasn't really that there before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he actually spoke on that part too. I wish I had saved that quote, but he did mention that, there was some holes there because Julie had mentioned Settle Ionitis specifically, and that there was some issues there. So to an extent, like you're filling some holes that you really didn't have to kind of create for yourself. But I'll leave it there and hand it over to Dre or AJ who wants to take a stab at this and circle back with my thoughts. But fellas, your thoughts on Jack Del Rio and their process and how they come to select Mathis?
I mean, I guess I'm confused because the system that I know Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera defensively, they want their D tackles to go upfield. So you draft a run stopper second round as if you're running a 3-4. That's going to be a rotational piece. I don't even know how many plays he's really going to get because you already got two dogs in the middle. So I'm just kind of confused because you want your guys to go upfield. You want them to be more pass rushers, but then you go and draft a run-stopping D tackle. You already highlighted that. That's the best thing that he does. The sacks that I seen him get at Alabama, he was lined up on the outside. So it wasn't like he was even at one gap and he was like, getting around those blocks and making plays on the quarterback. And a lot of those sacks he was getting were effort sacks. They weren't really technique sacks. I don't know if you guys have seen any of the clips, but
he's had. It was a mixture. He had a couple jumps where he won with some chopping rips and stuff like that.
Yeah, there was a couple, but I think a lot of those were like the outside though, right?
3 tech, 2 tech. My notes was it was a bull rush, a couple bull rushes that he had. It was a mixture. I explained it. I don't want to interrupt your thought, but it was a couple from the interior, but not like he had some that he win from the edge. He didn't win from the edge a lot. I'll tell you that much. He didn't win from the edge a lot. He had some athletic issues against those tackles.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I don't even think my worry with Jack Del Rio is with Mathis. More so like, what are you gonna do with this linebacking corps? Like, what is the plan there? What is the plan with, I guess, Mayo, Holcomb, Jamin Davis, and whoever else you bring in? Because at the end of the day, like, that's what's really, like, hurting your defense. That's what's hurting your secondary because the ball is coming out so quick because your linebackers aren't making the proper reads. I feel like the D tackles and the D line has done a good job of keeping the linebackers clean. The linebackers just aren't making the right reads and not being reactionary to the ball. They're not playing their gaps properly. They're like hesitant. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm all about getting depth, but I'm like Manny. They easily could have kept Tim Settle here. He wanted to be here. He's from here. He could have played a bigger role in this defense going forward. And on top of that, if you don't feel confident that you're going to be keeping Deron Payne, he could easily be plugged in as your starter alongside Allen. Not to say you wouldn't miss a beat, but you would be keeping that core of your defense together. I mean, you took something that was your strong suit of your team overall with your D-line depth, and you depleted it. And your excuse is telling me that you brought on Carson Wentz? Nah, bro. That ain't it.
So, to your point with Jamin, he mentioned there it is. So he mentioned that, he had a rough rookie year. He acknowledged that in his pressure, and he said if you go back and look at it and take 30 splash plays out of the year, you would say that this guy's a great player. But what we need from Jamin is more consistency, and I think you'll see that growth this year.
30 splash plays, like what the hell? Like what does that even? What does that even mean, bro? Like,
yeah,
what does that mean?
But I don't know if 30 is the right number.
I heard B Mix talking about this yesterday. It may have been the smartest thing I've ever heard B Mix talk about. he just broke down the math. And he was like 30 splash plays after year. Essentially, he was just saying like it's like 2% plays of the year. Like you can do that with any player. So like, what are you saying there? You know what I mean?
Right, and he was 19th overall pick, so a lot of that falls on you. Like you and your team for even drafting him that high because you didn't get him prepared. Like, and even when you didn't get him prepared to play the position, you realized he couldn't. You didn't even try to utilize him in different ways to make up for the mistake. So, I mean, I'm curious how they play him going forward. Like I said to y'all, I feel like he could probably be this Buffalo nickel that they harp on so damn much. I think his stronger suits is being in coverage and using his speed and not taking on blocks. So
I'm actually a fan of that.
Bro, I completely agree with that, man. I don't know why nobody's mentioned that. I feel like that fits exactly who he is. I don't know why nobody's mentioned that.
I think it's because they hear linebacker and then they seen him at the middle linebacker position. So automatically they don't think like he could be the Buffalo nickel. But that's exactly how the Buffalo nickel really originated. You feel me? It was a linebacker playing that position. It was a hybrid.
It was like Leo or some shit or all these other terms before they got to Buffalo nickel.
Yeah, it's pretty much a hybrid. But yeah, I don't know why I haven't heard of anyone else mentioning it. I've mentioned it a couple times here. I've even mentioned it to Jamin personally. Like, have you went to the coaches and asked them like, yo, let me get in this spot, maybe with Landon not being here anymore, whatever, because just watching this tape, he's a good cover linebacker. When he gets to play clean, he can play efficiently, smart, and he can react. But when you're asking him to go take on fullbacks or guards or whatever, it's not going to happen. He's just not one of those linebackers. He's not your old school linebacker. I think he could be like a Deion Jones. What's going to be curious for me, I think Deion Jones might get released after June 1st. So that might be somebody they try to add into the mix. But I feel like Jamin Davis could play the Buffalo nickel easily. He has enough speed. He has enough athleticism to go out there and cover your running backs, your tight ends.
Yeah, for sure. Man, actually, let me check on two things. Amani, appreciate the resub. My new setup over here is hard for me to monitor through my headphones, like the stuff that's going on through my Twitch activity. So I appreciate the resub. I did not miss you. All right, I didn't miss you. So appreciate the resub. Tyrone, he talking about dang, I forgot his name, but the 6'7" quarterback. He said the 6'7" quarterback Cole Kelly. Okay. That Washington sign is going to take the job. Oh, Lord Jesus. He said he's going to take the job from everybody. I respect
he must have did some fentanyl. He must be on the fentanyl.
I feel like some people ain't watched this team the last 30 years, man.
Oh, man. And
man, Cole Kelly couldn't take the job on Madden.
Hey, so Manny, I'm gonna go ahead and get you out of here. I appreciate you checking in as always, man. This ain't about to be the last time for sure. Let the people know what you got going on, man, and where they can find you on your socials.
Yeah, man. Hey, it was good seeing all y'all. AJ, I haven't talked to you in a minute, man. Hope all is well,
yes,
bro.
Sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys as well, always having me on, man. Always fun to talk to y'all about football. We'd love to come back on again sometime soon, man. Close to the season. You can always hit me up on Twitter at Manny_Benton. Always willing to talk shop with the guys, man.
Hey, quick before Manny get out of here, man. He's the reason why I even know Mual. Like he connected us and said, man, this is a smart dude, upcoming in the area, knows a lot about football, breaking it down, whatever. So I appreciate you, Manny, for even making that connection. It's been nothing but love with Jamal outside of even doing this show. Solid dude, man. So I appreciate you for
and I'll add on to that. Manny, how long me and you, we've probably been following each other about 10, 11 years now.
It's been a minute, man. Like, I was still in high school. I think I was still like high school, bro. It's crazy.
I've been knowing Manny alone. Never met him in person, but been following each other for years, man. I mean, I'm like a decade now. Always been a good, solid young man, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
I invited him out to the joint. Stop smacking that one time before things kind of went south on that side. But
Yeah.
one of these days we definitely gonna link up, man, and chop it up
For sure,
in person, man.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. You go ahead and handle yours, man. You be safe, bro. Enjoy the rest of your week.
All right, man. Appreciate you guys. Talk to y'all soon.
Already. Yes, sir. All right, here we go, Manny Benton. Fellas, we're gonna clean up with a couple more quotes and then get up out of here. So there's one more thing on the Jack Del Rio side that he mentioned. And this one is bothering me. It's really bothering me, fellas. He said, I don't remember how the question was phrased or anything like that, but he talked about the C word. And it goes as follows. It's about establishing a communication system and understanding of the system. And I think our whole secondary here working, unlike last year, which was a problem, some of it showed during the course of the year. Right now, we're having a strong off season and getting to teach them and have them understand how we do things so they can play faster is working out in their benefit in a sense. So because I didn't know what the question was. I know what it was pertaining to. Clearly, it's about the communication in the secondary and it being a problem. He's acknowledging that was a problem and that they need to develop a system, establish a communication system, and understand that system. When I was trying to find the quotes, because the Washington Commanders didn't publish like a transcript for this conversation, I just Googled Del Rio and stuff like that, right? I swear to God, communication has been a problem since he got here.
It was a problem when he was with. It was a problem when he was the head coach for the Raiders too. Like,
so I'm just so lost with like, and the thing is to not even put the blame all on him, but it does go back to 2020 for him and the communication with the secondary. But Washington has had this problem for over a decade. And I don't understand how hard it is to communicate in the secondary, like to the extent that it goes on for over a decade in two different coaching regimes. It's incredible to see something like this. And I don't know what the fix is. He's trying to explain it the best way he can without getting to the minute details. But fellas, if we talking about another year with poor communication on the back end, while he's trying to convince us that things are getting better and they're having a strong offseason, I don't think that one reason is going to constitute anybody losing their job in terms of like from the coordinator standpoint, but in the same vein, like you can't have a good season if your secondary is getting cooked again like it was the past year. I don't know. Where y'all at with that?
So, I mean, with Jack Del Rio, it's a couple of things I like about Jack Del Rio. I mean, one of those things is I love his confidence. I mean, Jack Del Rio is a very confident guy. If you ever listen to him talk, he carries himself like, I know how to do what I need to do, this, that, and the third. But one of the things I'm not liking about Jack Del Rio, he talking a little bit more than producing to me. And he doesn't seem to take responsibility whenever you kind of listen to him. Like I listened to the interview with Julie Donaldson that you're referring to, and one of the things that stood out to me was when he was talking about the secondary. He talked about the secondary quite a lot in the interview, and he mentions, like you said, Jamal, the communication. Like they didn't communicate, but he also said that a lot of these guys didn't show up last year to these OTAs and these mini camps and whatnot. A lot of the secondary guys. He was specifically speaking about the secondary, and it kind of came off to me as an excuse. Like, this is why we were bad, because these guys didn't show up or these guys weren't communicating. But how were you conveying this message, Jack? Like, how were you and your staff conveying this message to these guys? Like, sure, I can put some of the blame on the players. I can say, okay, these players may have lacked a little discipline. Okay, sure, maybe these players didn't buy all the way in. But what was your role in this? I never hear Jack Del Rio go out and say, yeah, well, it starts with me. That's kind of one of the things I like about Ron, even though that doesn't mean much in the scheme of things. I don't care much about a coach saying, it starts with me, but at least they're taking accountability. Like, this is my responsibility. But with Jack Del Rio, it's more of this smug, they didn't do this, or, these guys didn't show up. It was nice to have them here. And then he goes on Twitter and he starts talking like, we're going to be much better this year in the standings or the stats. We're going to be much better defensively. Yeah, he was on Twitter. You know, he does that. He goes on Twitter. I mean, he does his political thing on Twitter, but then he gets on there. He starts talking about they should be higher in the power rankings and people are smart if they are ranking. No, I don't want to hear that shit from you. I'll hear that from Joe Blow, the fan, you know, the normal fan we have on Twitter that says we're going to be better than, you know, this, that, or third. Sure. But from you, Jack Del Rio, I don't need to hear you tell me we're going to be better and we're so focused. No, I need you to show me at this point, because all I've seen you do is, for one, have a defense that regressed. You know, this is supposed to be the strong point of this team. This is supposed to be the focal point of this team. And two, all I've seen you do is say what everyone else didn't do. So now I need Jack Del Rio to show me. So I don't want to hear Jack Del Rio talking about communication is off and, you know, these guys didn't show up to OTAs and mini camps. What is your message to these guys? Why aren't these guys buying in? That's my next question to you as a coach. Why are these players not buying in? And why does it take an embarrassing season on the defense for you to say, oh, now we're focused? So Jack Del Rio has to show me at this point.
Yeah, man, I think it just really boils down to, you know, this is not one of his stronger suits. If you even look at his, like, head coaching tenureship, like, it's just never been one of his stronger attributes. And the groups that he has put together, like quality defenses, they've had veteran leadership on that side of the ball where they handle a lot of that communication, whether it be the Keith Talibs, the Chris Harris, the Von Millers, you know, the other guys in the back end, Darian Stewart. Like you said, veterans who can lead a group, who could lead a position group. Here in Washington, you don't really have that. Like, I don't know William Jackson ever being like a leader. I've never really heard that in Cincy about him. But that's why it's important to add those type of guys to the room, because it can help shore up the communication issues. I mean, if you're already talking about that in, May, that's kind of alarming.
I agree. I think so. He acknowledged a couple things, and I think that the biggest takeaways was that, you know, he acknowledged Jamin had a rough year, and also the communication needs to be better on the back end, and like for Del Rio, a guy who really in the season doesn't really talk that much, for him to, you know, have these comments now, it's kind of similar to, because he's a coordinator, is somewhat similar to what Ron is doing from a head coaching standpoint. Is he's not saying that, you know, we're going to be better type deal, but it's like you're setting these expectations with these players now. You're setting the expectation with the secondary now. Jamin Davis had a rough rookie year. Like, you could have spent that any way possible. You could have said, hey, you know, Jamin had his moments. You could have left out the part that he had a rough rookie year, but Jamin had his moments where he exceeded, and y'all are overlooking it. But you decided to dive into the fact that, you know, it wasn't that good. So I think that the expectations and understanding, and while he laid out the draft process, I don't think that'll, clearly based on how he outlined it, I don't think it's all on him in terms of how Jamin became a commander. But in the same vein, it's still going to be your job and the whole staff to kind of figure out their best fit. So if Jamin doesn't improve based on that rough rookie year that you acknowledge, that's pressure on your side. If the secondary from the communication on it, if that doesn't improve, that is pressure on your side. So I think, and something that wasn't talked about, the defensive line and their responsibilities. If the defensive line isn't able to improve from their standpoint, the true issues is muddy because of the position group guy, but also like there are some people who are gone now, and Matt Ioannidis, who you know, it is what it is. But if that defensive line doesn't improve on the front end, like that's pressure on the coach as well. It just wasn't talked about in this interview. So I just think it's a lot of things that's going to be some pressure that could have been avoided, but self-induced pressure from the coordinator standpoint. So you know, we'll see where that goes.
Hey, but real quick, there's no pressure for him to do a great job. His man Ron Rivera has already vouched for him. You feel me? He didn't even have a threat in his mind that he wouldn't be back this year. There's no real pressure for him if you put it in perspective. Like, he doesn't really have the pressure to succeed at his job. At the end of the day, his man is going to vouch for him. As long as Ron is there, he's probably going to be defensive coordinator.
I'm about saying that same vein, Ron will still be here. So I mean, it really ain't no pressure on Ron either. But to what you're saying, yeah. But I think if Ron is vouching for him and Ron has a terrible season, which was unforeseen in his eyes, then he got a bigger problem. He got a bigger problem on his feet. Put it that way. I think it's going to be some problems.
But, also, I'll say this about Jack Del Rio. While I have my criticisms about him, I don't think one of my least concerns is that he feels so safe in his job that he doesn't feel like he needs to do something. And I only say that because Jack has been around a long time. And honestly, last year was an anomaly as far as how his defenses have gone. As far as defenses that he's coached, last year was an anomaly for how bad they've been. So I think Jack, and that's one of the things I mentioned earlier. He has a lot of confidence and he also has a lot of pride. Jack is a very prideful dude. So he has pride that, in his defense should be top 5. I mean, he's had a lot of top 5 defenses in his coaching tenure. So I'm not so much concerned that he's, going to get lackadaisical. My concern is, are you going to convey to these guys these days in this era the way you need things done, and are they going to respond to you? That's my biggest concern with Jack. I mean, I don't know, because he kind of has this old school approach. I mean, which worked fine when he was coaching these top 5 defenses, but it's a new era. It's a newer, younger guys. Can you reach these guys? Can you get the most out of them? That's my biggest concern with Jack Del Rio.
All right, fellas. I think we're good on our side, man. It was a pretty good show. We didn't have much news outside of. I mean, we don't have any thoughts on rookie minicamp. We can't see shit. So I don't have anything there. And it amazes me. It amazes me. There was one comment, and I knew this guy wasn't serious, but in the same vein, he was half serious. This guy commented me about Cole Turner, because I felt like there was 2 things that I was trying to distinguish on Twitter. I said that he runs like Jason, or he has what did I say? I think he runs like Jason Witten, like in a literal sense. Like, I think he's faster than Jason Witten, but that's not saying much because I think Cole Turner is still slow. I didn't understand he wasn't really breaking away from the Mountain West defenders from a linebacker or corner or secondary standpoint. But when somebody saw Cole Turner running in shorts and a t-shirt at Ashburn, they mentioned me to tell me, "Oh, you had me scared for a second. He looking like he running fast." I'm like, nigga. He ain't got no pads on. What you talking about?
Hey, Jamal,
like
bro,
I literally
ain't nobody out there as Ghost.
No, it's funny because I literally thought about Jamal when I saw the clip of him catching this ball. It was, he's in his shorts and his t-shirt, and he catches this ball and he's running. And I saw a bunch of fans go, "Oh, look how athletic he looks catching this ball." And I said, "Damn, Jamal's about to catch some shit. They about to get on him."
Look, I'm about to say, look, it doesn't bother me, but I was like, I even said in my head, I was like, bro, he moving pretty good. He look a little fluent right there. And it's not like he's not athletic. He has really good change of direction. He has athleticism. He was a wide receiver coming into college, but bro, he just not fast. He not fast, and he lacks some strength. But I think that if he develops in terms of his play strength, he gets in the weight room a little bit, where he could be a dog, bro, a 6'7" tight end, bro, who's strong as shit. It's going to be hard for anybody to check that man. So speed don't really matter. But in the end of the day, if y'all are on Twitter looking at rookie mini camps and telling me or telling anybody that you got something from that, you played yourself. You played yourself. It's impossible, bro. It's impossible. But fellas, if y'all got any last thoughts before we get up out of here, the floor is yours. I think we covered everything for now, man. It's really no news, I don't think, until maybe next week. Because I don't remember when OTA start.
I don't need
so
it.
if y'all got anything y'all want to speak on,
But
we can talk about this.
Yeah, I do have one thing to bring to your attention. I mean, that Ron Rivera actually mentioned. Ron Rivera talked about Percy Butler. Did you hear him gushing about Percy Butler? Like, he said that he pretty much said Percy Butler is going to be on the field more than 50% of the snaps, which means he's your Buffalo nickel. Like, he already views Percy Butler as a guy that's not going to take off the field. He said that in his Julie Donaldson interview.
Yeah, that's actually it's a weird dynamic right now, right? And I say that because we entertained the idea of Landon possibly coming back. Then we also thought that shut up, bro. It's a bone. We thought that Jamin Davis had potential. This is all like during the draft and pre-draft, but we thought Jamin Davis had the potential to play that slot as well. But when it comes to that 3 safety thing, there was a statistic, and I think that's what Ron is following. And like you said as well, over 50% of the snaps. There's a statistic out there that showed like where their success was defensively last year. And he found that number 2, and their success lies when they have 3 safeties on the field. I don't know the concerns, like the strengths and weaknesses of Percy Butler, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him, because if one of the knocks on him right now is being able to tackle, I mean,
why would you put him at Buffalo nickel?
Yeah, that, but also like,
and he's a free safety, bro.
Yeah, and that's the con, right? But at the end of the day, safeties do have to tackle, so it's like, I guess they're going to try and play things through training camp and preseason and see where they can put him come regular season. Because if he can't tackle, then keep that motherfucker far away from the line of scrimmage.
Well, Jamal, that's your next film study. I know you've been looking at some film lately. You gotta look up some Percy Butler stuff. You gotta tell us what the deal is, man. It's
gonna be done before the one of these days. I'll be able to tell y'all what I got going on. It's real good news, but. Yeah, it's gonna be done before the season starts. That's all I can say right now until I could find a way how to best manage my time. But it will definitely be done. It'll definitely be done. But yeah,
you gonna see a lot of missed tackles. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know how they're evaluating players, but it is highly confusing. Like, if you literally think that this man could play Buffalo nickel in the NFL, something is wrong with you, bro. Like, he is really a center field free safety, bro. Like, that's literally what he is. So I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, they getting paid to coach players up, and it's weird to even say. What he said, that he looked fast in the rookie mini camps.
Well, I mean, he is fast. He runs like a 4.38, doesn't he?
Yeah, but what did Ron say that he looked in the mini camps?
He about to look it up because I ain't know much about it.
Yeah, I remember him saying is how many snaps he expects Percy Butler to play the next.
Okay, I thought he had said that he looked like fast or whatever, and I'm like, bro, you ain't know that from the damn scouting tape.
Yeah, I mean, but for me, I think with the Percy Butler situation is, I mean, I don't know if he's primarily going to play Buffalo nickel. I know Ron mentioned that's what they'll probably try to give him some looks at. But, I mean, at the end of the day, he may play all over the field. You may start to see Cam Curl play more Buffalo nickel, which he played a lot last year before they swapped him and Landon Collins. So you may see Cam Curl kind of slide into that role a bit while Percy has the deep safety responsibility. And that was a big issue early in the last season. Remember those, I think a lot last season.
There was play Landon deep.
Yeah, and that was the thing. But there was miscommunication issues. Like Bobby McCain and whoever else, Landon, Bobby, they were having these miscommunication issues where these guys, one guy was supposed to be playing deep safety, and they thought the other guy was playing, and you would just see a guy running butt naked. So maybe that's something you'll see with Percy Butler going on in this season. Maybe he'll slide back to what AJ is referencing to as the deep safety, and Cam Curl will sneak up to the Buffalo nickel.
It's interesting. I do like the versatility. Like, from what I'm hearing, understanding that he can play slot, he can play deep. If he had to play in the box, he can play it because he's a striker. And obviously special teams is what it is. But I like the prospects of him. I'm interested in seeing how they work it, especially with speed. Speed kills, and if you can have speed in there and somebody like 2 of the 3 guys who could play in the box, then I guess you got something to work with for real. Fellas, let's end it on this quote. I still, for the life of me, can't find that quote that I was looking for like last week, but I did come across a new one, and we'll end it with this. It It is from Walter Anderson. If you ask me who Walter Anderson is, I wouldn't be able to tell you. All right, so leave it at that. It is only when we take chances when our lives improve. The initial and the most difficult risk that we need to take is to become honest. It is only when we take chances when our lives improve. The initial and the most difficult risk that we need to take is to become honest. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all for watching. Appreciate y'all for listening. The fellas, we do got some things cooked up behind the scenes. But you know, when you know, or when we know for sure, you will know for sure. So with that being said, we're out of here. Y'all enjoy y'all day, enjoy y'all night, enjoy y'all weekend whenever y'all listening, and we out of here. Peace.
Yes, sir.
Bro.